Welcome to the Hidden Why podcast, episode 1051, my interview with Jonathan Robinson, and we're discussing the Enlightenment project. Enjoy. Hey Jonathan, welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. Great to have you back. Third time round.
Ah, fantastic. Practically family.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Doing good. Keep them writing. You've just written a new book, The Enlightenment Project, aligned with your website too, yeah?
Yep.
Subtitle, How I Went From Depressed to Blessed, and you can too. So lots of interesting stories, very entertaining read, but a lot of methods too to help other people on the journey of self-discovery, I suppose, and finding a joyful life.
I think of it as like the greatest hits. I've been very lucky, Lee, that I have interviewed 100 spiritual leaders, ranging from the late Mother Teresa, Ram Dass, Wayne Dyer, to Deepak Chopra and the Dalai Lama.
Yeah, wow. Tell me, how does someone go about getting themselves in front of one of these figures?
Well, I have a podcast like you in which I interview a lot of them called Awareness Explorers. But, I was doing a book where I was interviewing spiritual leaders, and once they heard I'd interviewed one of their peers, they were then, I guess I'll join that club.
Okay. Yeah. It's
but there's one funny story I'll tell you. Back in 1993, I wanted to interview Mother Teresa, and there was no internet. So, how do you reach her? I had no idea. So I went to the library and got a number for Sisters of Charity in Calcutta, which was an organization she had started. And, calling India in 1993 and getting anybody was like calling the space station and having somebody pick up, So I call this number and a woman answers, and I say, hey, I'm Jonathan from the United States. I want to interview Mother Teresa for a book I'm doing. And the woman says, yes, this is Ma. I said, yeah, Ma, do you know a way I can contact Mother Teresa? And the woman says, yes, this is Mother Teresa.
Wow.
So, I interviewed her, and it was wonderful. I couldn't believe that I had gotten that lucky. And then she gave me the number for the Dalai Lama. So I guess I have been very blessed in that way.
That's amazing, huh?
Yeah.
And the Dalai Lama too. How did you find interviewing the Dalai Lama?
Well, he was in town where I was. I knew he was going to be in town. So once I had the number of his assistant, we arranged a time. They only gave me 15 minutes, but he and I kind of liked each other. He has a wonderful sense of humor. And so ended up being an hour and a half. And There was a lot of laughing. He's very childlike and it's like being in the presence of a saint.
All right. So when you go into an interview like that, 15 minutes, obviously went for an hour and a half, got lucky again. Yeah. What do you how do you pick a question or questions to ask in such a short time frame?
Actually, I don't think ahead. If you're fully present, that's really what enlightenment is about, that you're not in the past, you're not thinking about the future, you're fully present here. And I think when we are like that, we have the greatest chance of success of connecting with someone, of really learning something. And so that's kind of what I did in that situation, and I tried to do in the interviews I do as well.
So did you go in rehearsed, or, just
had no idea what I was going to say?
Curious about awareness and enlightenment. That's what you've been doing, right? We last interviewed you probably a couple of years ago now, episode 696. And, you were talking about awareness then. That was the topic of conversation. So this has been your almost life's journey, this topic of enlightenment.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like letting people know they have $1 billion in the bank, but they haven't known that they have access to it. Because once you know yourself as awareness, you can get into a deeper peace and love available anytime. But most people, they're using methods that are like 2,000 years old. And, we don't use computers more than 20 years old. So why are we using spiritual methods that are 2,000 years old? A lot of the best methods I find have been basically invented in the last 3 years.
So when you talk about a method that's 2,000 years old, can you give us an example of that?
Yeah, yoga, Vipassana meditation, prayer. Those aren't bad methods, but they don't work that well in today's world. What we need is stuff that works in like 5 minutes or less.
So why do they not work in today's world? Is it because we're too distracted and things are moving so fast now that we don't, I mean, that method of yoga or things that I guess a lot of people would, and I guess myself included, I'd perceive them as taking a long time. You know, sitting down, I do a breathing method at the moment, that takes me about half an hour. And I give myself that opportunity to take that time. But for a lot of people, that'd be too long, right?
Too long and maybe not impactful enough.
Right.
So nowadays, people want an experience right away, and they often don't have half an hour or an hour a day to meditate. So in the Enlightenment Project book, I try to give, the greatest hits of the methods that don't take more than, 5 or 10 minutes.
The greatest hits, the 5-minute methods.
Well, when you've interviewed everybody, that's what I do. I say, what's your best method for feeling deep peace or love or bliss that doesn't take longer than 10 minutes? And people keep inventing stuff that's really good. In fact, I want to give your audience a bunch of free stuff if they want it.
Yep.
At awarenessexplorers.com, I have in the navigation bar the word meditations. And when I talk to somebody like the Dalai Lama or the Deepak Chopra or whoever, I ask them, give me your best 10-minute guided meditation. And some of them are really fantastic. They're all free on that site. And on my personal website, theenlightenmentproject.net, I have my 5 quickest ways to awaken to inner peace. And that I give that away as an ebook and a guided meditation for free. Because I think people need to get these methods, really experience them. And from that experience, they will see that this is worth putting some time and energy into. Yeah,
absolutely. What got you into on this journey? What put you on this journey to enlighten yourself and this whole idea around awareness?
Yeah. Well, 2 things. I think the 2 most common things, really, first of all, was a lot of psychological pain. I was blessed to grow up in a dysfunctional family in which there was a huge amount of violence and screaming, and it led to me being very depressed as a teenager and even suicidal. So I thought I couldn't control my family, but I thought maybe I could control my mind and tap within, some peace. So that started it. And then I got into psychedelics at some point, and that showed me that there was another possibility. And from the psychedelics, I, by age 14, got into meditation.
Okay. When you say psychedelics showed you that there is another opportunity or possibility, what do you mean by that? Like, that's quite a young age to be getting into psychedelics. But obviously you were probably in a deep place there as well.
Yeah. Well, nowadays psychedelics are getting popular again. Things like LSD, magic mushrooms, the drug ecstasy, all these things. Luckily, I was not the type that would abuse those things. I took them very in a context of great sacredness and had a friend guide me. But it showed me that there's a world outside my head that's always thinking and worrying. And it showed me that there's an immense amount of beauty. It showed me that there's a lot of things that I don't know and that bliss and peace were possible. And that's what got me to get interested in meditation, because I didn't want to rely on the drugs, but I did want to get back to that place without the drugs.
Yeah. Okay. Can you describe that for someone that perhaps never has experienced psychedelics, that experience that you get to?
Well, they will trigger different things in different people. But for me, I remember I wrote down on a piece of paper and this was exactly how I felt, that 10 seconds of this experience was worth a lifetime of effort. It's hard to imagine, if you haven't experienced it, what it's like to feel one with the universe, or what it's like to be filled with bliss or love to a point that it's like every atom in you feels like it's going to explode. Sex is good. If somebody hasn't experienced sex, you'd have some way of describing it, but this was better. And I knew that, people like Jesus or the Buddha have said the kingdom of heaven is within, but those are just words. If you've ever fallen deeply in love, you know how powerful this is, but this was even more intense for me, and I would do anything to get back to that place. But the good news is that even a glimpse once in a while gives your life new meaning and purpose. And, one time I was at a ashram in India to visit a guru. And when I sat in front of him, he, looked at me and he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Jonathan from the United States." And he just started laughing. And he said, "No, who are you really?" And, we all play different roles. So I said, "I'm a writer, I'm a therapist, I'm a husband." And he just kept on saying, "No, that's not it." And then, being that he was a famous guru, he did something weird, which is he sent me a beam of energy or something. And I felt so filled with love that I just started crying. And as I'm crying in his lap, he tapped me on the head and he said, "This love you feel, that's who you really are. And your job in life is to find your way back to it." And I think that for all human beings, that's our job in life. Separate from all the other things we do, that's really our purpose. And we got to find a way back to that place.
So when you're talking about this place of love, is that how you describe it, the place of love within?
You can describe it as love or bliss, or you can describe it as ecstasy. Different people tune into different vibrations of it. To me, it always feels like a bigger love is trying to move through me.
Would you compare it to the state of flow?
I think the state of flow is another wonderful experience. And, just like a radio has different stations, rock music, classical, country, they're all good. And to the extent that we can tune into all these high vibrations, flow is great, love is great, ecstasy is great, awareness is great. But most of us are stuck in listening to the bad news on the radio. And we got to find a way to change that station so we're more receptive to higher vibrations. And
don't we just tune into that bad news on the radio all the time these days, it seems?
Well, it's always out there. I mean, there's a lot of stations out there, and the bad news is one station, but I call that channel 2, the world of duality. You, me, problems, relationships, money. It's all the world of separateness. But there's another channel, which is channel 1, where everything is one. You feel part of everything, and that's a totally different experience of life. And that's also available.
Yeah. So looking at those two options, channel 1, channel 2, most of us are probably living in channel 2, I would think. And I guess that combination of those realities is something that's, it's desirable, isn't it, really? But it's hard to imagine too, because all of us are in this hamster wheel of life, just running, taking action. And I reflect on it a lot, and I was reflecting on it yesterday, talking with a mate about my work and how I was feeling a bit anxious and stressed because things are changing at the moment, and how I'm starting to also at the same time feel like it all doesn't really matter. Yes, I care, and yes, I love what I do, and as long as I put in this effort and enjoy myself, then it'll be what it'll be, So finding that inner balance there is really key, I think, but hard to do without awareness, I suppose.
Well, when you know how to tap into the background of awareness, it gives you the option that no matter what's happening in the crap show of Channel 2, and life is hard, you know that you can always go back to Channel 1. It's always there. And most people just don't know how to get to it. And they don't know how to get to it quickly and easily. And that's the key, because if you know how to get to it quickly and easily, you win some, you lose some in the material world. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
But once you know that there's peace inside and you can get back there, it kind of makes what's happening in the material world a little bit like a Monopoly game. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. It's just a game. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah. I guess thinking about living in the world 2, in Channel 2, that sounds nice, having this sort of guru life awareness, living in a cave for weeks. But a lot of people say, I can't do that. I've got a job to do. I've got families to look after. What would you say to that person?
Well, luckily I am that person, meaning,
right.
I got, a business, I got things to do. I have a wife, I have kids. So that certainly is part of my life. And that's what got me to focus on really simple, quick methods.
Yeah.
So in the Enlightenment Project, I probably offer about 30 or 40 methods. Probably half of them can be done in under 2 minutes. And if you don't have 2 minutes, well, you should really change your lifestyle,
Yeah.
But most of us have that long. And let me give one method that has a funny story attached to it. I don't know if I ever told this story. When I interviewed a lot of people, a bunch of them mentioned the importance of gratitude. And I thought, well, I'm too lazy to do a gratitude journal. Is there any quicker way to tap into gratitude? So a friend of mine came back from India and he was like totally lit up, very excited. And I said, well, what's the story? And he said, well, that my guru gave me this magical mantra for feeling gratitude all the time. And I said, really? Tell me what it is. And he said, no, you got to go to India to get it directly from the guru. So I always want these great methods. So I go to India. Have you been to India, Lee?
No.
It's a long way away. It's hard to travel there. And so I travel 18,000 miles. I take a rickshaw, and then I wait in line 4 hours to talk to this holy man. Finally get a chance to talk to him. I say, I want this mantra for feeling overwhelming gratitude. So in an Indian accent, he says, yes, my mantra is the most powerful on earth. And he leans in to whisper in my ear. And he says, whenever possible, repeat these words. The mantra I give you are the words, thank you. So I look at him, I say, that's it? I traveled 18,000 miles to get thank you, that's it? And he looks at me and he says, no, that's it is the mantra you have been using. That makes you feel like you never have enough. My mantra is, thank you, not that's it. That's it will take you nowhere. Well, I was, of course, pissed off and disappointed, but he said, you must say it from your heart. So when you eat good food, say thank you to the universe. When you see your child or a sunset or your pet, say thank you to the universe. Now, that seems like a really stupid idea, or that can't do much. But I mean, think of it. We're talking on the other side of the planet right now.
Yeah.
For free, and we're giving all your listeners free information that I had to travel 20,000 miles to get. You can't think like, well, thank you for air conditioning. Thank you for food. Thank you for my hand moves. And if you do it enough time from your heart, you actually tap into a whole new level of consciousness. Well, everybody has time for that.
I suppose by doing that too, if you make it a fairly good habit, you're really tapping yourself into the present moment too, because I think what happens too often is we're going from one to the next to the next to the next without actually pausing,
Yeah.
So like at the end of this podcast, if I just sat there and said thank you for the opportunity to interview Jonathan and then moved on, rather than just moving on straight away, which is what I typically do. Is that the sort of routine and habit you're in?
Yeah, that is as much as possible. And then there's, different techniques for different people. There's other really simple techniques that I describe in the book, or, people can get my 5 favorite at theenlightenmentproject.net for free. They kind of trick the mind into slowing down and being present.
Right.
And when you're fully present, like here's another example. You imagine that you're like just born into this body. You don't know what anything means. You don't know what's in front of you. You don't even know really what a face is so much. There's lots of these colors and sensations, and there's warmth or coolness, and you're experiencing stuff for like the first time, like you just got here. Well, that mimics being present and being awareness. And there's other things that you can do that are even better at deepening you into nowness, where the future kind of fades away, the past fades away, and you're just really present. And a lot of times that's what people want, like why they fall in love, because that's where they're not thinking about anything other than being with that person fully, and the heart expands, and you feel sometimes even like you're part of all of nature, all of the world. And I think that's what everybody really wants, but we're going about it in ways that aren't very effective.
What do you think the biggest challenges that we face right now are, as far as how we're going about things?
Well, we've all been kind of hypnotized that if we had more money or the right relationship, then we would eternally be happy. We're fed that line so much that we just think, if only, then I would be happy. But even when you get a lot of money or a relationship, there's still problems in life. The only thing that's really constant is that we are aware. And your breath. So if you can really enjoy your breath or really tap into the deeper levels of awareness, that's where you start to feel happy a lot of the time, because those things are always available.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something that we don't have to give back, whereas relationships or jobs or careers or money, that's all things that can come and go that we have no ownership on. Right.
And they're hard to control.
Very hard to control. But it's also very, I would think, hard to get into the mindset or state where it doesn't bother you by not having it. You know what I mean? Like the thought of, yes, I work hard and I've got some money at the moment, and yeah, look, I'll be fine if I don't have it, because I'm aware inside and I've got my breath and, my mind, I'm in control. But then when you're put in that position without it, that adversity, that level of frustration may overpower that ability to be present.
Yeah, well, it's good to have a little bit of ability to control things in your life, put a roof over your head. Yeah. That's important. But that's like one wing of a plane. The other wing is how to let go and just be. And that's a skill, just like getting good at the material world is a skill. Well, you put those two wings together, being and doing, and you can really soar. If you only have the ability to control things, it's like one wing of a plane is strong, the other one's weak, and those people often go around in circles and then crash.
Yeah. So what, can you give us one more little 5-minute tool that people could take away, like the thank you?
Yeah. Maybe I'll just do like a 2-minute guided meditation in which people will hopefully settle back into a more peaceful place.
Okay.
And you could do this with your eyes open or closed, probably better if you can close your eyes. And just imagine that you had a big eraser and you could actually erase your feet from the material world. So you're erasing your feet. They might feel tingly or they might feel nothing at all. It doesn't matter. And then erase your lower legs. Erase your upper legs. Erase your pelvis, your lower back, your stomach area, your upper back, your shoulders. And maybe you now feel like you are in your head. But what would happen if you started to erase your head, starting with your jaw, your cheeks, and even your forehead? And as you erase that, imagine your body's erased from the material world. Do you still exist? Well, yeah, because you can't turn off your awareness. It's always there in the background. And if you have thoughts coming out of this void, this awareness, see if you can turn down the volume on those thoughts, or turn down the volume or erase them completely, so that what's left is just being here now in a silence where you hear sounds, you feel sensations, and what hears them and feels them is this magical thing, this peaceful center of a storm called awareness that's always there in the background. And as you tap into that, you feel more peaceful, more quiet, more still. And that's all it takes. There are different methods for different people, Lee, but when you find a method that actually helps to quiet your mind pretty quickly, then you have a friend for life.
So just taking that 2 minutes out through your day to,
and you get better at
reconnect.
You get better at it with practice.
Yeah, absolutely. How many times a day would you sort of do that in your daily routine? Like, what's your meditation routine look like and daily practices look like?
Well, I might take a 2-minute break like that 4 or 5 times a day. So that's like 10 minutes. And then the days I'm not too busy, I meditate. Now, when I first started meditating, it was kind of hard, but having done it for a lot of years now, it feels, the best way I can describe it, it feels like an orgasm going through my entire body. So now I limit the amount of time that I meditate. That I promise myself I won't meditate for more than an hour because it can get a little bit addictive.
Yeah, right. It's a long time. It's a lot of fun to meditate there. Yeah. I mean, how would you, like when you go into that deep state of meditation, I mean, how would you describe that?
Well, I do different types of meditation that lead to different results. And I suggest that people try the same because, just because I don't like broccoli doesn't mean I don't like potato chips. And meditation's like that. There's a lot of different types. You might not like one, but you might like another. I would say, the best way to describe it would be, it's a little bit like when you first fall in love with somebody and your heart's totally open and there's just an immense amount of joy moving through me. That's kind of what it feels like at this point.
Okay. So now you have to stop yourself from doing it too often.
Yeah.
It's probably not bad advice. What's some events you've had in your life that have led to you to these moments of enlightenment, I suppose, or awakening?
Well, I think for a lot of people, they've had moments of awakening, maybe looking at a sunset or falling in love or in nature or psychedelics or even in crisis. So the question isn't, I think people have them on occasion, but it's very different when you start to have them as a daily occurrence or even an hourly occurrence. And for me, just stopping and melting into stillness and knowing that is there really changes how life feels. You just feel like instead of there being a victim of all the things I can't control, politics, global warming, fires, all those things, I just kind of feel peaceful. And I think you have to find what works for you. One of the ways that works for me, which is kind of funny, is I have 2 golden retriever dogs who I love immensely. And I'll just rub them behind the ears and kiss their nose and say how much I love them. And it's almost like loving a saint. You just can totally let go into that love. So that works for me as a major dog lover. or meditation works for me. For other people, they might find that they're really present when they garden, or they're really present in nature. And I say, whatever does it for you, do more of that. But most people haven't explored that much. So by having the greatest hits in the book, you can see, well, maybe that one will do it for me. And as I said, that can really make a difference in your life.
Yeah. And I suppose you've done that by interviewing, over 100 sort of world leaders in this space about their practices and what's worked for them. And you've taken not only on board and shared it out to the rest of the world through your books, but also taken on board your own forms that worked for you in your lifestyle. I would find I sort of feel right now, and this is probably not something that's new to this day and age, but something that's always there, just different in context. But there's a lot of frustrations and things happening in the world, and a lot of disaster and fear that's spread. And maybe people would think you're ignorant by not tuning into it. What would you sort of say to them about that? Like watching the news, for example. I try to avoid watching the news because I feel like it's beyond my control. And yes, I'm not disinterested in current affairs, but I feel like it can affect me immensely in my happiness.
Yeah, I think you have to learn what works for you. And I do watch the news, and I think it's important not to avoid the pain in the world, but also to not wallow in it. Yeah. I'm pretty good at feeling the sadness of some things happening in the world, but it not sticking to me. It kind of goes through. And because I meditate, or because I've learned what I call the skill of letting go and not thinking about stuff so much, that it can go through. And if you're not focusing on and thinking about it, the fact that, there's a lot of pain and suffering in the world, well, we really shouldn't be avoiding that, because part of our job, as we find, I've asked all these people, what's the purpose of life? Yeah. I've asked 100 of them. Okay. And I stopped asking them because they all gave me the exact same answer.
Right. What was that?
And for $20, I'll give your listeners, no, I'm kidding you, but the answer, when I ask what's the meaning or purpose of life, what are human beings here to do, they all say the first thing you're supposed to do is figure out a way to find peace and love inside you, however you do that. And once you have some of that peace or love inside you, go out and serve people and serve the world. So as I've learned to tap into peace, I feel kind of rich inside. And so I do have a lot of volunteer work. I teach meditation in prisons. I helped build a hospital in Turkey for Syrian refugees. And it's not because I'm such a good person. It's because, if you have $1 billion in the bank, spending $1 million is no big deal. If you're feeling good, you want to help people. And I find that seeing the suffering in the world helps me know where to respond.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So certainly don't shelter yourself from it in order to protect yourself from some sort of bad feeling.
But my wife does, because when she hears the news, she gets really impacted and it doesn't serve her. So you have to kind of listen to yourself.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. A lot of, would you agree that life is suffering? Would you go along the lines of?
Well, I have a magnet on my refrigerator that's a quote from the Buddha. And the quote is, don't look for peace in the world. Peace is only within.
Right.
And I think if you're trying to find peace by, manipulating the people and situations in your life to be just the way you want, well, that's going to be suffering. That's always dissatisfactory. It never quite leads to the peace you want, because peace isn't found in the material world. It's found within human beings.
Right. So essentially we could never find peace globally, because that would have to first have every individual in that world and community operational with internal peace.
Yeah. And, I'm involved in politics. I want things to go one way and not another. But I don't put all my hope in that. When you put all your hope in money or that the world's going to change or that your partner's going to change, it's a bad deal. It's like wasted money. It's wasted effort. But when you put some of your energy into what are the best ways to find peace and love within, well, not only do you get some results from that, but as you become a more peaceful, loving person, you affect the world a certain way because, you affect your kids, your family, your partners. So I think it's a win-win.
Yeah. I mean, and certainly that's sort of a question that had looming in the back of my mind there about the selfish pursuit of, finding that peace within. I think sometimes, I feel guilty about taking the time out to reflect within and find that inner awareness because I feel like it's just giving me time, But like you just said, I think if you can work on yourself and find that calmness and peace within, when you go out there, you're going to be spreading that love and spreading that peace as you go.
Exactly.
Yeah. Jonathan, where would you like to leave us? Sorry, you go.
Well, let me leave it with a story. Let's see. I have a lot of stories, so I'm trying to think of what to leave it with.
You must have some amazing stories with meeting so many people.
I have. And I feel a responsibility to get those stories and methods out to people because, I've been so fortunate that way. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote the Enlightenment Project. Here's a story which is kind of about gratitude as well. A man goes up to a guru and a voice accustomed to instant obedience. He says, well, if you're so wise, teach me a lesson about heaven and hell. And the guru looks up at the guy and says, I couldn't teach you anything. You're ugly. You're disgusting. You don't have a caring bone in your body. You are totally insincere. You lie all the time. Why don't you just get out of my sight and stop wasting my time? Well, of course, this infuriates this arrogant man. He gets red in the face. He shakes with rage and he gets ready to punch the guru in the face. An instant before he throws the punch, the guru says, that's hell. The man realized that this guru risked getting beaten up to teach him this lesson about hell. He unclenches his fists, and in deep gratitude, he bows to the guru, and the guru says, and that's heaven. Now, what I like about that story is it shows that we create our own heaven or our own hell by how we interpret the things in our life. And if you can tap into making better interpretations, being more present, and learning what helps you to find peace within, then you do create a heaven on earth for yourself, and potentially you can pass that on to the people you care about.
Yeah. Great story. Hey. Fantastic. Jonathan, a pleasure once again for coming on, and congratulations to your book, The Enlightenment Project. Thank you for sharing. I'm sure the audience is really enjoyed this conversation. Now, just sorry, you go.
No, my pleasure. I always like how you're putting out great information, Lee.
What you've mentioned a couple of areas people can go to find out more information. You've got a few things online. Can you just share those resources with us one final time?
Sure. Basically, two things. One is the site for the book is theenlightenmentproject.net. And if you put in your email address, you get a free ebook called The 5 Quickest Ways to Awaken, an audio meditation on the same thing. And you also get the first chapter of the book for free. And then some people might be interested that I have a podcast called Awareness Explorers, in which I interview spiritual teachers and I ask them what really works and what do we need to know. And I have about 110 of those interviews online, and people are welcome to that, and that's all free as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Awesome. Guys, check it out. Hidden Why Podcast, episode 1051. Jonathan, thanks for coming on today. And guys out there listening, peace, passion, and purpose. Yes, sir. Thanks, guys, for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. I hope you love what you're hearing. If you like this episode, guys, or any of the episodes that you're listening to here at The Hidden Why, please do me a favor by sharing it. You can share it with your families. You can share it with your loved ones. You can do that by using your favorite social media channels, using the icons on the platform that you're listening to The Hidden Why podcast. Also, guys, if you're a fan of the show, please connect with me. Connect with me at thehiddenwhy.com. I love to hear from you. I love to converse with the people that listen to this show to find out what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy, and perhaps if they have any questions or feedback for the show as well. You can stay up to date with all that I'm releasing here, guys. I do a solo show every Monday, a 3-minute thought every Thursday. I do 2 interviews a week on a Wednesday and a Saturday, and a book review every Friday. You can stay up to date with all that by subscribing to my newsletter at thehiddenwhy.com. Just enter your email address there, and also subscribing to the podcast on the platform that you choose to listen to your podcasts. You can also support the show, guys, by using the Amazon links at thehiddenwhy.com. So if you like books, you can get all the books that I review there, and anything else really that you like to purchase through Amazon. So use that link, it helps support the show. And we've also got a deal with Audible, guys. Audible is a fantastic way to listen to all your favorite books. We've got a deal with them so you can get 2 free books when you subscribe subscribe to a 30-day free trial. So check that out again at thehiddenwhy.com. Guys, that's it from me. You know what to do. Go out there, breathe more passion into every single moment. Do everything with greater purpose, and in doing so you will discover your hidden why. This is The Hidden Why. My name is Lee Martinuzzi. Until next time, peace, passion and purpose. See you soon.